Last time out at round 1 in Spain, Lister set the pace for the new season in practice, qualifying and racing. A small pit lane oversight cost them complete ownership of the front row, but on the stopwatch, the pair of Black Storms were the class of the field. An early puncture for Christophe Bouchou threatened Labra's chance of converting the NGT pole to a class win, but their dramas weren't as bad as some. The Carsport Holland Viper had challenged for the lead, but a series of white line infringements at the pit lane exit cost them their chance of success, which left the field clear for Lister and Belmondo. Chamberlain's number 1 car retired with an electrical fault. The second Lister went out after going off fairly hard, and that left the rest of the field in pretty much the same order as they ran towards the checkered flag. So at last it was a first international win for Lister, a great moment for them and not a bad one for Belmondo either, finishing second and third. First and fourth in NGT made it a good day for Labra competition, especially Christophe Bouchou and Patrice Goudelard coming home in front of G-Force and GTC. The championship is well into its stride now, with a busy grid scheduled for the second of its 10-round European Grand Tour as it visits another of the great racetracks, with Monza, Silverstone and the Hungaroring still ahead, with circuits that suit the big Vipers and some that should be genuine Porsche country. Now we're at round 2 on the coast of Portugal, the resort town of Cascais with its Grand Prix circuit just up the road in Estoril. And we're on board now with Mike Hazeman in the number 25 Viper as he gets used to this layout in Sunday morning's rain, which everyone now expected would be the story of this race. Right in turn 1, heading downhill towards turn 2, which is another 90 right. Break and turn, and it's still going away downhill towards turn 3. Levelling off now, going through the hairpin right and accelerating much more gently in the rain. Uphill to 4, another hairpin, but the first of the 4 left-handers on the revised circuit layout. Much slower than in the dry, by as much as 20 seconds a lap. Easing the gas pedal as you come out onto the long straight behind the paddock. Correcting and turning right up to gently here. And then the long run downhill that's very fast in the dry, slower in the wet. Braking early for the 3rd hairpin at turn 6. Left, starting to climb away again. Heading up the hillside on which this circuit was built. Rear end slithering around in the rain. Hard uphill towards the 3rd of the right-handers with a real corner, this one at 7. Don't be fooled by the old circuit layout as you come out and nail the throttle. This is a very short straight to turn 8. And still the climb continues towards the bit of track that everyone here seems to hate. The new chicane is short, vicious and uphill, hard work, easy to spin, and it winds up transmissions if you don't treat them gently. A big strain on the cars in a 3-hour race. The GT2 Porsche's feeling it worse than the Vipers. On the gas for a long flowing section of the circuit that everyone enjoys in the dry, the only place where all the cars are really on it. But accelerating away through the last 3 corners until the big right-hand sweeper carries you through 180 degrees back out onto the front straight and running away towards the finish line. 140 in the dry, but closer to 2 minutes or more in these conditions. The afternoon qualifying session was doubly important for Cor Oyser and the Marcos team after their times in the dry morning session were cancelled after scrutineering, just as they were coming up onto the pace of the rest of the GT2 cars and setting good times somewhere in the top 10. With new exhausts during the afternoon aimed at getting more heat away from the engine in a bid to reduce the overheating problem that stopped the car in Valencia, things were starting to look good when the bad luck, which seems to haunt all their efforts, struck again. All their dry times were cancelled and they had to rely on the afternoon session. And though Oiser did a masterful job to be second fastest in appalling weather, the afternoon's pole time was 15 seconds shy of the morning and left the Marcos stuck on the very last row of the Portuguese grid.
The airbox this morning, we had a cracked airbox, so we didn't pass the check from restrictor. So luckily we found the problem. We did fix it in the couple of hours available because it has to dry out first, the carbon. But eventually we made it.
While Oiser pondered his misfortunes, others were rejoicing in the arrival of rain, the great leveller. In particular, the slippery conditions gave the newer cars in the NGT class a step up compared to their older GT2 equivalent.
You can see today in the wet exactly where it's possible to stick the cars, and I think even in the dry this weekend, we've seen the difference in times come down from sort of maybe 6 or 7 seconds at Valencia between the front GT car to maybe 4 seconds here, which is very encouraging. So perhaps with a little bit more development and following wind, we might be able to close the gap right up.
Lots of the GT2 Porsche men were already concerned that the playing field was less than level this season.
We think the organizer should think a little bit for the regulation with more weights, the quicker cars. We can do nothing anymore on a Porsche. We are on a finish now with the development. That's the limit on this car. So why not? We must buy also a Viper or a Lister.
Maybe he should, because even the rain didn't help the GT2 cars close up to the Vipers and that Lister.
I don't think that we have improvement with the Porsche if it's raining. Because the other cars, they have a lot of downforce and we don't have the downforce, especially with ground effect in that car, comparing to the other quicker cars like a Lister and like the Viper.
But the Viper crews weren't that happy either. Apart from the fact that some of them have little experience of racing these cars in the rain, most of them had even less experience of rain so torrential that it turned the racetrack into a river, making it undrivable in places even for the wary. Watch this as Steve Watson goes round turn 3 ever so gently and hardly touches the gas pedal. Hardly breathed on it and the back end was gone even on wet tyres. There's such a depth of water in places where rivers of it are streaming downhill across the track that those big tyres just float away, and so does the rest of the car. And once it's gone, there's no bringing it back again.
For me, it'll be a learning curve for sure. My wet weather experience is down to single seaters, so we were quite quick in the wet practice this afternoon. One of the drivers in the heavy rain to go under the 2-minute mark, so we'll see how we get on.
A front runner last time out in the Spanish sunshine, and even a potential winner there, until a series of Healy mistakes ruled them out. Car Sport Holland were hoping that a wet track would help put the bright red Viper on the same sort of pace as the Lister, or at least make the race conditions so unpredictable for everyone that they'd be able to find some sort of advantage on Sunday afternoon.
To beat the Lister, I think it's easier in the rain than in the dry. But I was not so lucky in my qualifying, but I think in the dry is also difficult.
The Belmondo Vipers looked strong last time out as well, collecting a well-earned double podium finish. Now they were refining the strategy and hoping to do at least as well second time around, although there were once again 2 Listers to beat if they were hoping for the win here in Portugal.
We think that we can do a good result, we can score points as well. It should be alright. You never know anyway, so we just have to wait, be patient, and we'll see at the end.
Boris de Richbourg himself looks like he might be the find of the season, adapting very quickly from single-seaters to the big Viper and always on the pace.
It's getting quicker and quicker. I think I feel better and better as well. In Valencia, the car was quite good. We didn't have any chance in second qualify. Everything was quite good, so I was there.
A strong performance at Valencia until the Armco got in the way was followed by another strong qualifying performance from the crew of the number 15 Lister as the big black car set up a front row double in the dry morning session and rested on their laurels in the afternoon, confident that they had the pace to win in the dry and the balance to do it in the wet as well. It was pole position once more for Julian Bailey and Jamie Campbell-Walter, and a good confidence booster as the team set out to repeat its round one win, even with 40 kilos of success ballast loaded into the footwell on what's laughingly referred to as the passenger side of the car. No problem in the dry, they said, but the number 14 car didn't go out in the afternoon when it was wet.
I think the race is dry, yeah. I mean, we've got a good setup, and the car, obviously, even with the 40 kilos, it's got a slight advantage around here. So the only thing that worries me is the weather, because we didn't get out this afternoon in the wet, because we just took the gearbox out to check that over for the race. So, yeah, I'd obviously prefer it if it was dry.
But it wasn't likely to be. This is what the forecasters predicted for Sunday afternoon. It's Sunday morning at Estoril, and against all the odds, the downpour of Saturday night was back again as the cars went out for their 9 a.m. warm-up, Mike Hageman finding out just how slippery it really was. But he wasn't the only one who discovered how scary the rivers of water across the track could be. Franz Conrad was another who was caught out as the shiny black surface concealed enormous puddles of standing water as well. He came across the stranded red Viper in the centre of the track, and then what looks like the lava Porsche as well, also facing the wrong way. As he rounded the next corner, you can just see the change in surface ahead. Look at the road now. That's a huge puddle, and this is the result. The rear end was heavily damaged, and the team immediately started work on rebuilding it in time for the race. The sign says it all. The torrential rain and howling wind that devastated the circuit on Saturday night, destroying hospitality units, flooding buildings and washing away access roads, is expected to be the major feature of this race, and we won't be stopping it to change tyres, so teams must make their choices now. The sheer quantity of water which fell on Estoril last night overwhelmed the local drainage system, and everyone today is hoping for moderation, especially the Lister men, happy enough, wet or dry, and hoping for a repeat of that round one win. But also hoping this time that they can back it up by bringing the second car home in second place. A Lister 1-2 this weekend would be just what the doctor ordered for Team Supremo Lawrence Pierce. But there is most definitely a threat to the Lister domination from the very strong squad of bright yellow Belmondo cars, although they're not all up at the sharp end of the grid. With that second qualification session, the one that everyone was pinning their hopes on, effectively written off by rain, the yellow cars were spread across the grid like a bright yellow exclamation mark, punctuated by Carsport Holland and Chamberlain. The young hotshots led the old guard as a result, but Paul Belmondo and Vincent Voss are a formidable pairing and could well produce the team's best result this afternoon, especially if conditions remain poor. Vipers are a handful in the wet, nothing like the single-seaters de Richebourg has been used to. Second Chamberlain Viper, Walter Bruin and Tony Seiler, and then the first of the Porsches, and possibly the first to become a beneficiary of the weather. Rain will help them close up with the Vipers, and maybe the Lister, but not by much. Rain will help the NGT cars though. The new Porsches are so much better than the old ones that they should be able to duff up the GT2s in the wet. It's the yellow number 51 Pennzoil crew in class pole, Smith and Neugarten, ahead of last week's winners Bouchut and Gooselard in the lava car. The light drizzle sprinkling the circuit as the grid formed up is now developing into proper rain as the warm-up lap gets underway, and it's a rolling start in GT, so as they come round to finish this lap, the red lights should go green and this race should get underway. Well, you can hear it for yourself, absolutely appalling conditions. You can see it for yourself. The track is wet, the day is grim and murky. Hardly the resort coast of Portugal that we were all hoping for and expected. Hardly the conditions that the teams were expecting. What about the new ones like this lot? Another of the new teams encouraged by the NGT rules, Mack Racing. Two brand new out-of-the-box GT3s, all the kits to go with them, and these are the conditions they have to welcome them to their first ever race in this championship. Not good for anyone, even those who have been here for years. Here's the grid then, with all the times on it set in the drive, so it may be better to look at the warm-up times from this morning. The only two exceptions to that are the two cars at the very tail end of the lineup, the Marcos and the RWS Porsche. Both of them had to set qualifying times in the wet. Lap times closer to the 2-minute mark will be the order of the day, and in the all-wet morning warm-up, the fastest car was the Pennzoil Porsche of Magnus Wallander, the NGT car able to run closer to its dry pace than anybody else. And that could be a sign. It could mean that there will be an NGT car on the podium. Following the course car around the circuit, you can see that although there has been a lot of work here, there has been widening and there have been changes to the corner. There are parts of this circuit that are still very narrow, at about 10 metres. Notably, that twisty uphill section out the back that leads them into the chicane at turn 9. That was very busy in qualifying and practice, likely to be busy in the race as well. Plus those two classic outbraking points on the run down towards turn 1, and again out the back on the run downhill towards turn 6, the two big hairpins at the end of the front straight. On board with Lee Amorim. Look, there's the red light, barely visible. There it goes, completely white. As the cars in front stand on the gas, the spray comes up. The only person who can see anything at all now is Julian Bailey as they come 4 and 5 abreast down towards turn 1 with David Hart, and we're on board with him now behind Vincent Vos in the number 12 Viper, and he's lost it in turn 1. Slides away, collects the number 15 Lister, and now they carry on. Well, a brief moment of excitement, but they all got away fairly cleanly considering the conditions as they piled into turn 1. Take another look at it now, on board with Hart as Voss comes round the outside, just touches the gas, the back end goes, he's out of control and collects the second Lister as he goes off. Julian Bailey leads it. Behind him, there is David Hart in the bright red Viper. Lee Amorim behind that, and then behind that is the number 11 Viper of Boris de Richburg. There is Vincent Vos catching up in number 12, and you can see that conditions are not very clever at all. They're as bad as they've ever been while the cars have been on track. We're on board with Louis Villamil in the number 67 Mack Porsche, and you can just about make out the back end of, I think that's number 22, the Viz Racing Porsche, but it's so difficult to tell, and the drivers have got to try and find out where the track goes. It's very easy to lose your way, forget where you are, and fail to recognise the corners, and that can be a little bit worrying, and it's worried someone. There was a Porsche on the side of the track. It was one of the Pennzoil cars. Red flash on the front makes it from it then as Julian Bailey with the Vipers in his wake tries to make a getaway, and it is all Vipers. There's the first of the Porsches, that's Wolfgang Kaufmann, And I think behind Wolfgang Kaufmann's number 3 Porsche, you caught a glimpse there of Mattiazzi, number 21 in another of the Vipers. Got away very well, and there's a little bit of debate about that in the pit lane. And here is Vincent Voss making up his mistake, trying to close with the leaders once more. There's Kaufmann. After the Viper, chasing after Julian Bailey, back on board in the 67 car. Midfield, where it is a really gutty day to go racing. Just look at how poor the visibility is. Julian Bailey's still the only person who can see a great deal, hasn't got his wiper on yet, but in a few laps, if things go normally, he'll be catching up with the tail enders, and then he'll be having the same problems as everybody else. Meanwhile, on the pit wall, the managers are all doing strategy sums. This one could be interesting. In these conditions, the NGT cars could get away with one nice and comfortable pit stop, and that could bring them right up into contention at the end of the race. The GT2s will obviously use less fuel as well, but how much less? They will probably still need 2 stops, even if the second one's only a scratch and dash. It's a big long pit lane here at Estoril. There's the entrance on the right of the picture. That's nice and easy, but the exit's a long one, brings you right out into turn 3. So they lose a lot of time in the pit stops, and that could change the face of this race as we get towards the end of the 3 hours. And of course, these conditions could change it as well. Sliding all over the place now. Amorim in the number 1 Viper. Just saw the back end of it stepping out as he turned in. All the drivers working. Driving on sheet ice would be very similar. Hardly have to touch the throttle as we've seen, and the thing goes away from you. But he seems to be catching the number 25 car quite easily, and it does seem as if there may be a problem there. Looking for a way through and not finding it here. Well, he's been past. That looked like Vincent Voss on his way up. Yes, it was. Vincent Voss, who was second, fitting for first in turn 1, then dropped back to midfield, has now blitzed his way forwards and is in 4th place, at least, possibly even 3rd. He's indeed 3rd, isn't he now, behind Hart. So here's your NGT leader. That's Christophe Bouchou in the lava car, number 52. And Hart passed now by Vincent Voss in the chicane for 2nd place. So the Frenchman in the Belmondo Viper really on a charge as Hart closes the door, not having any of that. Turns left on the far section of the circuit. There is Vincent Voss again, and this is developing into a rare old scrap. Here it is again on board with Amorim. This is what it looked like. Through the chicane, very close together. Race leader on the right of the picture is number 14, the Lister of Julian Bailey. Behind in 2nd place, the Belmondo Viper, number 12 on Vincent Voss. And in 3rd place, trying to chase down Voss, the Red Viper of David Hart. And the Amorim behind, looking for his way past. And it's possible that the car in front of him, this bright red Viper, which ran so well last time in Valencia and ran so well in qualifying, may have a problem. Well, Amorim struggling with visibility. It's better from his side of the car. He can see a little bit more than we can, but not much. There's Mattiazzi, and that debate in the pit lane, I think, is going to result in a 10-second stop-go penalty for 2 cars. But he's got number 19 right on his tail. You may have noticed, of course it's hard to miss it, let's be fair, and you may have noticed it crowding up behind the Viper. Remember that Kurt Oyser started at the back of this grid and has launched himself through the field. Oyser is a driver's driver, and in these conditions that sort of thing really pays. Here's Amorim going for the pass, getting a little bit squirrely in the turn, and a complete pirouette. Didn't happen. Well, he's been trying to do that for quite some while. Got a little bit of a sniff of a chance, and you can see that the penalty is severe if you get it wrong. At least Amorim rejoins and gets going. Race leader Julian Bailey in the number 14 Lister is just ahead of Vincent Voss, who spun at turn 1 in lap 1 and has fought his way up to challenge for the lead, because that is what he is doing. Absolutely flying around the circuit in these very difficult and treacherous conditions. We were saying earlier that the good drivers really can show their pace in these conditions. Ross has got that delicacy of touch point, obviously, which works for him, and he knows the car well. He's sat in a few Vipers himself. He's probably sat in that one when it was a different colour round at Orica, and is now showing that experience here in dreadful conditions at Estoril. Wolfgang Kaufmann is on the right of your picture as Lee Amorim recovers from his spin and passes Christoph Fluchu, who is the NGT leader and 7th overall. We said the NGT cars would show their class in the wet, and that is the case. 7th overall at the moment. Early days. Expect strategy to help them further up the field as well. We should see one of those NGT Porsches on the podium at the end of this race. Following Kaufmann, the GT2 Porsche really doesn't like this uphill section of the circuit, especially not through the chicane. It winds up transmissions and drive shafts particularly. Have to get it right, have to gentle it. You have to do that in the wet as well. All the advantage of the turbo is gone, and all of a sudden they'll have these things breathing down their neck like a pack of sharks. Right now he's having to deal with Amorim, who is bound to pass. Here it comes, must go through here. Now we've seen the Amorim lose it under braking while trying to make a pass before, but this time he gets through. And you can see that it's not an easy part of the circuit to do it on these tight and twisty corners that lead up into the chicane. Really very short in the chicane. Really have to work it. Really have to get it right in this weather. And here's a man who's been getting it right lap after lap. Cor Oyser is nailing that Marcos. The conditions are absolutely right for them today. Wrong for Viet Racing, the number 22 car in the pits and retiring. Technical problem for them, a loss of power. It might be down to water in the system, but might be something else entirely, so park it and call it a day. There's your race leader, 14. Here is Vincent Vos in second place still. The gap between him and Bailey seesawing a bit, but in general Vos is quite comfortable on the tail of the Lister, and Julian Bailey is quite comfortable doing just enough to keep Vincent Vos at bay. What we do now is wait to see who makes the first mistake. One tiny little one is all it will take. Doesn't even need to result in a spin, but if Julian Bailey loses the back end, Vos will be closer, and there will be thinking about this fairly shortly, I think, because Cor Oyser looks like a man who's on his way to the front of the field. The two of them are on the podium at the end of the race, and let's not underestimate the possibility for that here. Suffered from an overheating problem at Valencia, obviously isn't going to suffer from one in the pouring rain, so the Marcos able to deliver its full potential. The new transaxle in place has eliminated the Achilles heel in the transmission, which always brought it low before. And now this stupendously ugly machine, which is quite attractive in its brutality, is on its way to a good finish. This is Palmer in the number 4, prizing a car, getting all swirly at the end of the straight, and just gets past Villeneuve. On board with that number 67 Porsche, and that was Riccitelli, and that, oh dear, just sent Villeneuve into a little bit of a spin as the 77 car went past. Really on its way up the field is that one. No real harm done for Villeneuve, turns it and rejoins the race. Well, it had to happen. Julian Bailey is in among the back markers. He's just gone past the number 7 Porsche of Gerald Reed, and Vincent Vos is going through as well. So that means from now on, Bailey's going to be driving in everybody else's rooster tail as well, and visibility for him is going to be a problem, just as it is for everybody else. Lister leads it, Belmondo Viper in second place, and somewhere behind that, a glimpse of yellow, which means that's Boris de Richebourg in the second of the 3 Belmondo Vipers, now running in third place. There it is, passing the Porsche, behind that, bright red Viper, that's 25 in fourth place. Number 1 is in fifth place, that's Amorim, and then it is Wolfgang Kaufmann, followed by Christoph Fluchu, who has now got Core Oiser in the Marcos, banging on the back door. Well, what a charge through the field it's been for Core Oiser, right on the back row of the grid, and here we are now heading towards a points finish. Bushu is 7th and Core Oiser is 8th and catching him. Real racing car stuff this for Marcos. Really is a tremendously well developed car now, and it's starting to show its true potential this year, and expect Core Oiser and the team to be rewarded with good finishes, and expect them really to take advantage of conditions like this. Here is the number 15 Lister chasing through the field as well. Remember, he was tipped off in turn 1 by a spinning Belmondo Viper, and he's now up to 9th place on his way up through the field as he chases after this man, because Oiser is closing in on Bushu, pressuring the number 52 Porsche, and he's carrying the fight forward to the GT2 car of Wolfgang Kaufmann in front of him. Now, we said this might happen. We said that in these conditions, the NGT, the GT3 Porsche out of the showroom, comes with much better suspension, much better sorted than the GT2 car. Take away the power advantage, and you could well see some embarrassment in the GT2 camp. And under the impetus of the charge from Oiser, Bushu is giving it everything, doesn't want to drop a place. Comfortable in the lead of his class, but a good overall result is what he wants as well. Here's your race leader, this is Julian Bailey. Hasn't put a foot wrong. Got through turn 1 with everybody behind him, controlled the start beautifully, and is now reaping his reward. On board with Villeneuve, down in about 17th or 18th place, really down midfield, but a good steady drive in these conditions, and expect the pit stop advantage to work in his favour as well. Here comes Oiser moving on Christophe Bushu, easy as you like, he goes past through turn 6 and up 1 place. So now he's chasing after the man in front of him, that's Wolfgang Kaufmann in that car there, the second of the two Porsches, the black and white Freitinger car, number 3 with the yellow door mirrors. He's got the 66 Porsche, the second of the Mack Racing cars, between him, but not for very long. On the gas coming out of the final corner, and away they go with Bushu looking to take advantage of that. Oiser got stuck behind the back marker. Bushu wanted to grab the place back, no such luck. Marcos well ahead, and not this lap is he going to catch the Freitinger Porsche. Maybe on the next one. Here's Harburn moving up as well, with the Lister really showing what a tremendous performer it is. Harburn showing what a tremendous drive he's putting in, as he was dead last, and he is really making time on the rest of the field. The Lister throwing the fuel consumption strategy out of the window, but who cares in these conditions, and really zipping up through the field. But just look at the way the rain is falling. Conditions are truly dreadful, and the Lister, a naturally well-balanced car, so the drivers will all tell you, reaping the benefit of that as Peter Harman gets after the rest of the field. On board again with Nee Amorim, 5th place in the Chamberlain Viper, through the chicane, still the red Castle Holland car in front of him. Nee Amorim, Portuguese driver, this is his home circuit, but I don't suppose even he's seen it like this very often. Heading towards the first corner as we go past the pit, braking very early, trying to make up a bit of ground and doing it there, closing up on the number 25 car, bringing it a little bit closer, but you still have to be so gentle, babying it out of the corners with the throttle. That back end so prone to just diving away. Race leader is Julian Bailey with Baz and Voss right up his tailpipe. This is very close indeed. Voss has been on the gas since he spun in turn 1, and he's now closed right up with the leader. And he is going to give Julian Bailey a very hard time indeed. and the pit garage opens, and all the hard work that the Conrad team have put in has paid off, because this is lap 11 and Franz Conrad joins the race from the pit lane with a hastily rebuilt tail end as Thor Euser carries on his pursuit of Wolfgang Kaufmann. This is the lap. Not last time because he wasn't close enough, but this time look how close he is coming out of turn 13. Watch him now come out of the slipstream, draw alongside. He's going to outbrake Kaufmann into turn 1 and grab the position. Euser, from last on the grid, is now 6th. Somewhere behind the number 36 Porsche of Manuel Montero, the Estoril racing car. There is your race leader, Julian Bailey, in number 14 Lister, and right behind him you've got a better view of him than Julian Bailey has, but he knows he's there. That's Ransom Voss in the leading Belmondo Viper. 3 cars on track this weekend, and that's the one that's placed highest, swirling through the chicane. You can see so jumpy under power, and the conditions are getting worse. It started raining almost as the race started, but now just look how heavily the rain is falling here. The track is awash, the rooster tails are growing, visibility is decreasing, and the rainfall is, if anything, increasing. Now, these are truly, truly dreadful conditions to be racing in. The lights hardly help at all. The drivers relying on the professionalism of each other to stay out of trouble. But when you're lapping slower cars, that's never reliable enough. These are very fraught conditions for everybody. And the result of this race is far from a foregone conclusion, especially when Vincent Voss is this close to Julian Bailey. Well, Lister hasn't had this sort of challenge all weekend, certainly didn't have it in Valencia, but the rain has levelled the playing field, as we have said so many times, and now it has levelled it right out. Vincent Voss is definitely challenging for the lead. If he could see enough, he would find a bit of track and have a go at the Lister, I'm sure. Perhaps he won't be able to do it at the end of the straight, because the Lister's got the speed on the Viper, but somewhere in the turn, maybe not here, but perhaps in the approach to the chicane, he will find a way past. You can hear, listen, just how heavily that rain is falling, and you can see just how wet the surface of the racetrack is. Wheel spinning every time they shift up through the gears, even as they go into 6th. They were wheel spinning in the morning warm-up, and they'll be doing it now even with full wets on. Look at this, Vincent Voss has a look down the side of the Lister. He's not close enough, lost a bit of ground on that long front straight, braking into turn 1, closes up a bit. He may just have a braking advantage over the Lister. And here's the second of the Belmondo cars. That's Dirichborg in number 11. Well, it's definitely not going to go to its full distance in terms of laps, so strategy is going to be everything, and here's somebody who might benefit from that. Look at this, Richard in number 77, second in NGT, off the back of the grid, leaping up the overall leaderboard, the drive of his life in these conditions, and really making the most of it, and thinking ahead to the time when he may stop, trying to make it as long as possible. Nobody can go more than 55% of race distance as a driver, but they can stretch it to that full 55%, although nobody knows what the full distance will be. It'll be on the stopwatch, it'll be 3 hours, so they'll do it probably on time, keep the drivers out in NGT as long as they can, and get one good pit stop under their belt, and then try and go all the way to the finish and pick up a pit stop advantage over the GT2 cars. That will change the way the leaderboard looks. Well, this bloke is really on it. Richardelli, fastest car on the track at the moment. Vincent Voss has been faster, but Richardelli really is storming through the field. A tremendous performance from the Red Bull car as he picks them off time after time after time, and that really does illustrate how well sorted these GT3 Porsches are as they arrive at the racetrack. Race leader Julian Bailey being sorted, or at least Vincent Voss is trying to sort him from second place, hasn't managed it yet, and it doesn't look as though he is going to be able to on this sort of performance. Perhaps waiting to get a pit stop advantage if the Belmondo crew can turn them round quickly at the end of the first hour. Safety car on track, yellow flag, safety car fall out, and you know that is because of the weather. And the field lines up behind the safety car. Half an hour into the race, and there is the order as the safety car bunches them all up. Now that means we're going to get a restart behind the safety car, and that could change everything for Julian Bailey. He managed it perfectly the first time. Vincent Voss is really on it though, and that will give him the opportunity perhaps he needs to make a dash past the number 14 Lister. With the rain getting worse and the conditions deteriorating even further here at Estoril, absolutely unbelievable downpour, and the red flag comes out. They've stopped the race because the race cars cannot keep up with the safety car. Narrow tyres, four-wheel drive, and the safety car can go round faster than the race cars, which are aquaplaning all over the place, slipping all over the track. So they're going to halt them on the grid now, and they'll go for a restart when the conditions clear up.
Stop. Alright, just come into the grid and wait. What do we do, right there?
Yeah, just right there behind the line.
Well, Lawrence Pierce briefing his crew. That's what they'll do. It's a two-part race, so they'll stop it now. This is part one of the race, and it will be an aggregate result. They'll add the result of part two to the result of part one, and then they will declare a full result. Roland Brunzerider, the FIA race director, talking to Julian Bailey on the grid. The rules say that there can be a restart. The race will be in two parts. That will add up to the full distance, or the race director could stop it at 75% of full distance and award full points. So they could race on for another hour. But the conditions are really bad, as you can see, really very treacherous and very, very dangerous, and unsurprisingly not many of the drivers really want to continue like this.
Well, it was impossible. You know, conditions were just, cars were aquaplaning everywhere. In the end, we couldn't keep up with the pace car. You know, they've got very small tyres, so they cut through the water, but you know, when it's about this deep, the car just picks up on top, and it's impossible. So I like to call it a day and go home, actually. I'll finish off where I started in the lead.
We all brought our bikinis to Portugal because we were expecting good weather.
I said to my wife, come to Portugal, it's nice and sunshine. She's very happy now.
Are you happy now?
Well, not really, I think. I mean, now the race is a nonsense, so it's just not for me. So we'll see what happens, but I think too much water on the track.
Looking good for you though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it does look good, but I mean, you know, once you have the car in the barrier, it doesn't look at all good. So, and with too much water and rivers across the track, it's no good.
I couldn't see anything, so that was maybe the problem. It's very bad out there, you know, it's very hard to judge where you are on the track, especially when you drive behind somebody. The one in front of you don't see you because his mirrors are all wet and dirty, so it's not easy.
Normally, you know, I'm sure with what happened now, he stopped the race. Yeah, he must stop the race, you know. And also, you know, in some place it's so full of water, you know. It's crazy. Just if you have luck, you can pass. Otherwise, you spin and you. It's not a race anymore, you know. It's too dangerous, really.
That says it all. Conditions too dangerous for the race to be allowed to continue, and there seems to be little doubt that the hastily convened meeting between organisers, FIA and team managers will quickly reach that opinion in an official capacity and call a halt to the race after 24 laps. So Lister takes its second series win, a complete drought followed by two in a row, but once again there's a niggling disappointment because the second car isn't there, and so there's no 1-2. but Belmondo get another 2-3, putting 2 cars on the podium for the second successive weekend. Let's take a look at the points table, and you can see that puts Belmondo in quite a strong position now. They may be second and third on track, but with 2 drivers in the Lister sharing the points, the highest placed Belmondo driver can only be third. But who's complaining? Not these boys. So eager to celebrate on the podium that they're spraying the champagne without waiting for the trophy presentation. You'd think they were wet enough already, but to be honest, it's raining so hard that a little bit of champagne's going to make no difference to anybody. Lawrence Pierce get a soaking from the team as Lister celebrates its second international GT win.
The hardest race I've ever done. No, I mean, it's a shame that the weather has stopped the race, but you know, Julian was on the radio saying there's 8 inches of water out there, so on the back straight, so the decision had to be taken to stop the race. And then we waited 45 minutes. They set a cut-off time of 2:30, and at 2:25 we went round the circuit with Roland, who's the FIA sporting director, and we cleared the track to be safe to race. But then at 2:29 it poured down again, so obviously the race wasn't restarted. We couldn't wait any longer, and now the sun's shining. So it's a bit of a shame, but a good result for us. Obviously only half points, but 2 wins in a row is good for Lister and us.
And another good result for Paul Belmondo, with another good personal result and a great one for the team. 2 races, 4 cars on the podium, underlining the fact that this team will be a championship contender this year.
All the weekend we were on the top. I mean, from the pre-practice through qualifying and the warm-up, we were always there. And okay, we did get the result we deserve, I think, this weekend. Maybe we could have better. But I mean, it's the half points for everybody, so it's the same. Yeah, the good thing is for the people that didn't score points, they don't lose so many points on us. That's the problem. But the others, all the people who are battling in the championship, they score half points also, so it's okay.
In a weekend of doubles, it was only fitting there should be one in NGT as well. Bouchou and Gousselard in the right place at the right time. Bouchou leading, Riccitelli storming into second, Neugarten pacing himself for 3 long hours in the rain, but this is the final leaderboard for the NGT cars. A repeat win for Labre, but the real story of this class remains unwritten on the overall leaderboard, where wet weather, slippery tarmac and some smart tactics might well have made a little bit of history here this weekend. But there's still plenty for everyone to celebrate up here on the podium. Silly boys. Half points all round, so the margin's not so big as it might have been for the top crew, but it's the same for everyone, and the result is as good as it could have been for Labre competition for Patrice Gousselard and Christophe Bouchou.
Yes, it was nice, no problem at all. Qualifying we are only second, but I just dropped 2 laps in qualifying, so for this reason it was not a big problem to start. And since the first corner I was first, and after that I take 1 or 2 seconds by lap compared to the rest of the NGT, and I had no problem at all during the race until the safety car. So we are very happy because it's a second race and second victory. Like Lister, everything is wonderful now.
Riccitelli stormed to second place. Michel Neugarten pacing himself to a plan, caught out in third place when the safety car appeared.
It's pity, the track is wonderful, the place is very nice, but this weather, it's in 30 years, it's the first time you have the weather like that. And we lose a very nice match, here. And I think in Monza with the NGT, it's a very nice competition. I'm sure about that, really.
Next time out there at Monza, it's Viper country, but Ferrari is back.